We went out to visit a family who had just been released from detention. They were sleeping on the floor, they had no furniture, and we got a call on Sunday evening to bring them some things, and we gathered together some camping equipment and raced across Melbourne to give them a blow-up bed and a couple of camp chairs. I came back to school the next day and sent out an email letting people know about what I'd seen and asking if anyone would be able to help these people out.
That email stayed with me and it wouldn't leave me, and I knew I wanted to do something.
These people were the no advantage people who had come to Australia on boats. They were all highly traumatised and sort of struggled to get through that time in the detention centre. And when they were placed into the community, they were given very little support and resources, and it really seemed that it was organisations like Catholic ones that were setting up houses and just helping people find a place.
So many people in our community gave of their time, of their money, of their skills. Help came in so many different ways and in abundance as well.
The more we established friendships, the more we realised what the need was, and people kept meeting those needs.
Our ICT department were fantastic. The whole idea of being able for these families to communicate with their loved ones overseas. So, the introduction of Skype via iPads that our IT department set up.
We would have to have conversations and explain how that worked in Australia, and then try and find service providers that were willing to put connections on with people that didn't have documentation and finances and bank statements, and had we not been with them, they wouldn't have got anywhere. There's been days where we felt frustrated and annoyed by the system and by what's happened to them, but probably the sense of goodness here and the sense of compassion and friendship has been far stronger than the negatives.
One of our members of staff took our friends to Phillip Island to see the penguins, and while they were waiting in the queue, it was prayer time, and Phillip Island Penguin Visit doesn't have a facility for prayer time, and so the CEO, as well as 20 staff, went above and beyond, and our friends ended up in the CEO's office for prayer time. And my understanding is that as a result of that experience, Phillip Island and the Penguin Parade now is going to have a prayer room.
The gospel values that underlie everything that we've done, I often think of that Catholic hymn, who will speak if we don't, and everything that we have done. I've likened it to the stories that we teach our students. We've had some babies that have been born in the families, and to me that's like our resurrection story. We talk about Jesus and Easter and what does that mean for us, and to me those babies being born into this world bring hope. They're Australian citizens, they don't know the trauma that their families have come from. I guess for me a huge part of this, that the community of adults here have been exceptional, but the students here have been remarkable too, and they have blown me away too. They have been so touched and motivated to make a difference.
After meeting some of the refugee families at school, when I was at the end of year 10, I was able to exchange phone numbers with some ladies who I especially connected with. Through doing this, I sort of got to realise some of the struggles that came with being in a new country, not knowing the language, having to deal with the trauma that they have had from living in Somalia. So I guess I have done my best to help where I can. I tutor some ladies in English and babysit the kids. I love doing that.
I think it's really listening and listening to the stories that people have to give. It's such a privilege to be able to hear stories from people, especially the barbecue that CLC hosted with refugee families. It was so incredibly rewarding to just be able to sit down and have the opportunity to listen to these people talk about their lives, and it's such an amazing gift for them to be able to open up to us. And I think that's really what girls appreciate the most, is knowing that they can get to know these people.
I first came in contact with the refugee families at a Christmas hamper that the school had run. Over a period of a few weeks, students brought in presents and they were given to the children on the day. Before the hamper evening, I hadn't had much to do or knew much about the topic, but being there that night, it really opened up my eyes, how grateful they are to be in this country.
Being in the social justice group, we've worked really closely with the families that we've welcomed into the community, and we've really outreached into other organisations and stuff to help refugees further out in our community. And there's been a lot of fundraising and help being done to help people like that. Organisations who have set up English lessons and stuff like that. We've helped fundraise money to pay for rent and electricity and set up smart boards and stuff so English lessons can run really smoothly.
One of the students, she found a refugee woman a job. A 16-year-old girl found employment at her place that she works, her part-time place of employment. A year 11 student made that happen. The girls have achieved great things, and I think they're better advocates than we are.
I would just like to send the message to everyone that, especially my generation as the first generation of truly global citizens, that our cultural and ethnic diversity is what makes us stronger, and all these opportunities I have and my community has, I think we're sort of urged to use the voice that we've been given and basically just realise that the future is in our hands, and whenever you see a need or see a way that you could make a small positive change, it is worth doing.
Thank you. What I hope you saw. It all began with an email, an invitation to enter into the story of a refugee family in need of support and friendship. Who would have thought that this email would have sparked a response which still continues strongly today? A response that was not calculated but organic, which grew from the initial email invitation. So what was it about this particular email? What was it about this Mary Aikenhead community who responded so compassionately and spontaneously? The email reached out to our sense of humanity, which is at the heart of our work as educators. As Carolyn Arthur, the author of the email, reflected, every day at work we deal with crisis, and the outside world comes in to the rather protected world of schooling. But that's what teachers do, and that's what we are good at. It's not that big a jump to become involved in the lives of refugees. Probably a main difference with our students and the refugees is that the refugees' trauma is less hidden. They are survivors of not only what made them leave their home, but also of the detention centres they have been placed in. But like some of our students, many of the refugees are only holding on and just making it through each day. The email invitation stayed with many staff members. It was haunting, it touched their hearts, and it called them to action. The community came together, sharing their collective talents, resources, and expertise to provide support and to develop friendships. They helped to find accommodation. In one time, one of the people had gone out to meet with a real estate agent, and they said, well, we've never leased anything to a refugee family. And the only thing that was actually available were what we called drug houses, where they were pretty ruined. And so there began the next process of our members of our community spending time tending the gardens, making those houses a home, filling them with donations of furniture, technology, and household supplies and toys. Staff members and their families acted as advocates with essential services and social service agencies. Staff liaised with primary school staff to ensure that they understood the needs of the children of these families. Support was given in seeking housing, medical, educational, social, financial, and crisis help. Employment was sourced, and you heard about that on the video. We also employed one of the refugee males as a soccer coach at CLC. He's a very talented player. Leisure, holiday time out, and sporting opportunities were made possible, and arrangements for worship and faith community involvement investigated. Driving lessons organised, languages taught, and skills shared. And there were donations from staff who couldn't do those things. And technology was enabled for communication. It was a coordinated effort, and the staff felt comfortable to give as much or as little as they could, when and wherever they could. And what really made and continues to make a difference in everyone's lives was the sharing of culture and food, and the celebrating of significant moments. For the families being in a house for a year, birthdays, the baby showers held by the staff, Ramadan, hosting a Christmas dinner at CLC, and the presence of one of our staff members with a nursing background at the birth of a baby. So all the while, friendships grew and they matured. And there have been times as well when boundaries have had to be put into place, and some members, staff members who have been caregivers, supported in their role and helped to debrief as well. The coming together of CLC staff members and their families in all of these ways has contributed to a stronger sense of community as a Mary Aikenhead College, and a sense of empowerment, as staff members began to see what they would humbly say was the tiny difference they were making to the lives of others. What was important for the staff members was a sense that they were not doing to, but being with. And I quote, as without friendship, there is neither authentic solidarity nor a true sharing. It was also a time of surprise, with staff members learning things they never knew about each other, about themselves, our students, and about the willingness of their colleagues to join with the community in such a way. It is in service that one is transformed. As educators, it has been wonderful to see our students unite with staff. Student awareness has been raised through learning programs and social justice activities. Some of our students have responded to the call for action, raising awareness, organising speakers, visiting families, and challenging their peers' thinking. A greater understanding and respect of other faiths has emerged, and a general shift in attitudes towards the welcoming of refugees has been noted by teachers during class discussions. Daniel O'Leary states that theology has to be autobiographical, engaging the young in action, if it is to connect them in any way to God's love. These words are reflected in the involvement of our students, of our young women, in this project, in this family, and this set of families that we engaged with. And it was shown in their respect and welcome of difference, and in their commitment to service of others. And this is an ongoing challenge for us as educators. How do we ignite their imagination? How do we disturb their thinking? And how are we able to create some imaginative ways or creative ways of inviting them to that table? And in our invitation, how do we link in story and in relationship to touch their hearts? In recent times, our students have been involved in welcoming refugee families to Eltham, and that's a separate project, the Butterfly Project, which was outlined before. And our college captain, Abby Bear, who you saw on this video, was actively involved in this group and in community events. Not only did she educate others, staff and students about the movement, but she led her fellow students in making butterflies as a sign of welcome. When some of the butterflies were defaced, Abby led a group of CLC students back to the area, turning them into butterflies again. Students from other local colleges saw what Abby was doing and actually joined in with her. And her actions were apt for the last year's college theme of the road less travelled. We can choose different ways and make a difference. The CLC community joined together in solidarity to make a difference in the lives of people seeking asylum in Melbourne. This year we have welcomed the daughter of a refugee family residing at St Vincent's Aged Eltham, and we look forward to exploring other ways of entering into partnership with our cousins next door. As a community, we have learnt more. We have been challenged, felt more, raised awareness and taken action, and we will continue to do so. It has not always been easy supporting newly arrived, traumatised people who are in such need, but at the end of the day, we have gained far more than we have given. It all started with an email from a woman on staff with great conviction and generosity of spirit, who authentically gives life to the values of justice, hope, love, and compassion. She shared a story about a refugee family in need and gently invited her colleagues to become part of the evolving story. When we fail to see the other, we fail to see God. Thank you.